All right, welcome back to season 5 and happy new year, everybody. It's around mid January when this is going to be released. So we're excited to be back. Hope you had a good, somewhat restful break, whatever you had as a break. I hope that was good for you. Hope you had a good Christmas and a happy new year. And we're pretty excited. We've got a few things happening for season 5. I'm not going to give anything away, but stay tuned because we've got some exciting things coming up. But one thing that we wanted to add, and I think would it be appropriate? I think maybe this is a shout out to Jay of the Dead and his podcast, or have you heard it on other podcasts? Because I know he does this.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the main ones I listen to, but certainly their horror movie weekly, they always kind of talk about what you're about to introduce. So yeah, I would say that's fair.
Yeah. So if you're new here, welcome, Leatherface Lee and
Maniac Mike?
this is our 5th season, which we're pretty stoked about. I think I read somewhere that the average podcast lasts 7 episodes.
Yeah, I thought we'd never make it past episode 2, so we're doing well.
So we're well beyond 7, and we had a great season of guests last year. If you haven't checked out season 4, check out season 4. Maybe you want to start with our top 10 of 2023. That was a really interesting episode where I think we miscounted. I think we had 5 overlaps. We found out after, but we thought we had maybe 4.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But we had some really interesting differences in where we put those movies in our top 10 list. And we've done some other top 10s 2022. We had our favorite horror films of all time. And so check out our back catalog because that's available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and Anchor. And without any further ado, let's jump into season 5. So we wanted to start this new thing in season 5, which was, in addition to sharing whatever movie is going to be the focus for our episode, we thought we'd just give a really quick cut, recently seen film that each of us have seen, maybe or maybe not, more than likely show up as an episode on its own. So if Mike's good, I'm going to start.
Yeah, jump in.
So this was one that I've seen. I streamed it on Amazon. This is one that I've seen listed, and I was like, nah, I'm not really sure. But anyway, I jumped in. This is Afterlife. It's a 2009, I'd say, drama horror thriller. I think it leans a little bit more to the thriller drama, and its tagline is "Life is the symptom, death is the cure." Now, very incongruous. It's 5.9 on IMDb, which is pretty decent score, but it's 24% critic score and 33% audience on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm not really sure where the disconnect is because those scores don't really match up. But it's directed, and bear with me, Agnieszka Wojciech-Woslow.
Nailed it.
She's a Polish female director. I think this was her second feature, and it stars Christina Ricci, Liam Neeson, and Justin Long.
Ooh,
Justin
cast.
Long, yeah.
I love Justin Long.
Yeah, it was a good cast.
And Liam Neeson. And Christina Ricci.
So anyway, I'm not going to give anything away. I'll just tell you what the synopsis is, and then we can move on. Following a terrible car crash, a woman awakes to find an enigmatic mortician preparing her for burial. So that kind of, Justin Long was the reason I watched this because he's so good in everything I've seen, particularly in his horror films. So do I recommend it? I'm on the fence. I found it's funny, I stuck on the word enigmatic because I found the film enigmatic. I wasn't sure. There didn't seem to be, to me, any clues about where we were, whether we were in reality or an altered reality. So I'll leave it at that and say, if my description intrigues you and you like enigmatic films that kind of make you think, you might want to give this a try. It's a slow burn for sure. There's no crazy action in it, but for what it's worth, Afterlife, after.life. And
Any comedy? Because Justin Long sometimes walks that line.
Not really. It was, and that kind of disappointed me a little bit because I thought there wasn't really opportunity based on the storyline. It was definitely more drama serious. So no comedy. So for what it's worth, give it a shot, see if you like it, and don't blame me. I'm just saying I saw it recently. Okay,
That's
what
why we
you
do
got?
this segment, to kind of
Yeah,
throw some films out there that we've watched, but we're probably not going to do an episode on. So yeah, that's a perfect pick.
totally.
Yeah, so for me, I watched Old by M. Night Shyamalan. I was going on a road trip and I wanted a movie to watch, so I was quickly scrolling through Netflix for something I could download and watch. I'm like, oh, there's Old. I had heard terrible things about this movie, but
Yeah,
let's
me
try
too.
it because I do really like M. Night Shyamalan. So I downloaded it and I watched it, and I actually thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't have gotten in with lower expectations for this movie
Okay,
based on
that
what people had
helps.
said about it.
Yeah.
So I was expecting the absolute most abysmal film in existence. So given that as a starting point, it wasn't as bad. I actually do like the concept of the movie. If you've seen the trailer, the idea is that people go to a beach and they age very rapidly. So that did bring out some pretty like interesting scenarios to play with. I think this would have actually been better had it been like a season of television rather than a film, because it just felt, I think some of the things he was trying to do ended up feeling kind of cheesy and rushed because there wasn't enough time to properly develop it.
Okay.
So I think that the execution is the problem, but I think the ideas were good. So yeah, it's too bad. I think had he had more time, he could have developed things properly and it would have been more effective and maybe less cheesy as it comes off. So, but the person I was watching it with, not a horror fan, but she liked it. So, and I didn't hate it. So I think maybe, I mean, is this Signs or Sixth Sense? No. But it's still M. Night Shyamalan. He's a very competent filmmaker. And so if you're a fan of M. Night Shyamalan or you've got rock bottom expectations and you're looking for something okay to watch, I think it's all right. It's on Netflix.
Now that's interesting because it sounds to me like it's the opposite of what his usual problem is, which is technically it's a good film, but the writing, particularly if he's been involved in the writing, might be a little bloated or whatever. So it sounds like it might be a little bit opposite to that. Like it needed more writing. Would you say?
I think so. I just think this idea that time is elapsing over the course of a day and trying to develop all these things in a day, but you only have an hour and a half, like some things just felt very rushed.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you did one thing on episode 1 and then developed it later into episode 4, I think it would feel more natural. So it felt like a concept that was really cool and he had some really good ideas and he executes well in some instances. It just, in my opinion, just needed more time to develop properly.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I was just thinking about something like The Haunting of Hill House and Mike Flanagan. And the idea that if that had been a feature film, I don't think it would have come off.
Right.
Because for exactly that reason, because it needed the depth of character to pull off some of the things. You needed to care about the characters. And because there were the children and the parents, like there were a lot of characters that you needed to invest in for the concept to work.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds exactly like that. Like maybe, yeah, it needed to be like a mini series, 6 episodes or 8 episodes or something like that.
And that seems to be what people struggle with is like, sometimes they're too long. Like for the concept they have to put in a lot of padding for these seasons. They want to make 10 episodes and they end up feeling kind of lame.
Yeah, yeah.
Or a film's too short. So yeah, maybe that kind of 3-4 hour thing is the best.
Interesting. Okay, so you've got Afterlife and Old by not Old Afterlife, but just Old and After. Anyway, that's bad. That was a dad joke, but I'm in my 50s, so what can I do? Are we ready to jump into our feature?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this came up on our top 10 list, and if you haven't seen our top 10 episode, let me do a brief recap for you. So early in December, I wanted to do our top 10 episode. And Maniac was like, no, there's some films I want to see. There's a particular one that I want to see. And so I rushed out and actually watched a really bad copy of it. And I have since watched it in a higher grade copy. And Maniac didn't even see it. So even though it made my top 10 of last year, this guy didn't see it. And so now here we are. So the film that we're going to look at on this episode is 2023's Thanksgiving.
I used to love this town. Until what happened that night. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, and I'm tired of pretending like everything is normal and it's not.
I want things to go back to normal too.
Show some enthusiasm.
Thanksgiving is an institution here.
Directed by Eli Roth. The cast: Patrick Dempsey, Ty Olson, Patrick Dempsey.
Humpty Dumpty.
sorry, Pat. Ty Olson and Gina Gershon, which I haven't seen do anything in a while, but I can't say that I'm not a uber fan. Anyway, IMDb 6.6. That's a strong score. 83% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and 79% audience score. Did I say it was Eli Roth directing?
You did, Eli
okay,
Roth,
good.
yeah.
And I don't think he's done other things, but he hasn't had a feature in a while.
I know. Was Green Inferno the last thing he directed?
I think so.
And he was in Inglourious Bastards, but yeah, I've not heard from Eli Roth in a while.
Yeah, I mean, he did the series on Shudder. The history of horror film.
That's right. That's my last thing.
I think he's been doing some other things. And I think he's got a podcast. Like, who doesn't have a podcast? If we've got a podcast, I'm sure Eli
He surely must have one, yeah.
So the summary goes that after a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy, a mysterious Thanksgiving-inspired killer terrorizes Plymouth, Massachusetts, I'm not doing very well with my speaking today, the birthplace of the infamous holiday. Now, how should we start this one? So there hasn't been, I don't think, a really good holiday horror film in a while.
Like an iconic one, no.
An iconic one, yeah. So I was pretty excited to see this one. It flow mostly below.
Halloween Ends? Does that count?
No.
Okay.
No, none of those Halloween movies counts, the remakes. Yeah. Anyway, got thrown off.
Well, they're often Christmas or Halloween, so it was cool to have one for Thanksgiving, which is not. There's not a whole lot of Thanksgiving films that I'm aware of.
I mean, if you believe Eli Roth, I saw him interviewed recently, and he was saying that he's always wanted to make, inspired by Halloween and other films, he's always wanted to make a holiday slasher.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, I'll get into this later, but him being a horror fan, there's a bunch of Easter eggs in here that are really cool. Like, if you're a horror film buff, I didn't catch all of them, but I caught a few of them. I just think that's always fun when there's a layer for the true fans where you can go, oh, I know what that's referencing or whatever.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, I always find Eli Roth's films to be fun. Like, they're quite entertaining.
Yeah. And well, I mean, we'll get into it later, but so we're going to do spoiler free for the first half. We'll give you our little biddle-a-doos when it gets to spoiler territory. But where did you hear about this one?
I don't remember exactly. Well, my first exposure to it was watching the Grindhouse film, the double feature in theaters where they had those fake trailers. And one of the fake trailers was Machete, which they made into a movie with Danny Trejo. And then one of them was Thanksgiving. And I thought, oh, that looks like it'd be fun. And then they made it into a film, I think just online buzz. So yeah, funny that I was like, no, we need to hold off on our top 10 so I can watch this movie. And I didn't get a chance to see it, but I did see it now. And yeah, I really liked it.
What did you
Now,
think?
I had told you about this one though, right? You were,
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't on my radar and you had mentioned it. I thought, oh, that's really cool. And I remember just watching a trailer and thinking, okay, yeah, I do have to see this one. Now, I'm assuming that you're not a Grey's Anatomy fan.
No.
I haven't followed Patrick Dempsey's career, but I know that he's the sexiest man alive. What I really liked about this is that he often plays the all-American good guy. And just, there's no spoilers here, but I just like his character seems to have a bit of edge. He's nicer, but he's got a bit of edge to him. And I think it plays a little against his type.
Yeah. Do you watch Grey's Anatomy?
No, but my wife does.
Okay.
And during COVID, she watched 15 seasons. And we're talking, this is like epic binge. Watched all 15 seasons during COVID, and then kind of like, I don't know if that was an emotional tie, but anyway, we just finished season 19.
Wow, that's a lot of seasons.
It's a lot of seasons, and it's a lot of episodes. Anyway, so I'm struggling to figure out where to begin without spoiling this. Any thoughts about that?
Right. Well, I don't know about you. Like this to me was very evocative of those kind of like 90s slashers. Felt like a bit of a throwback to like a
Totally.
Scream or I Know
Yeah.
What You Did Last Summer.
Totally.
Because you kind of have teen drama mixed in with kind of a whodunit element in that you're trying to figure out who the killer is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it walks that line of not taking itself too seriously, some self-referential stuff, kind of like Scream, a little bit of black comedy, kind of like Scream.
Yeah.
So to me, this felt very much like those kind of 90s slashers, which is kind of, I think, Eli Roth's heyday a little bit.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I first got into film in the 90s, like I loved that triad of Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, and Eli Roth, who all kind of work together and collaborate with each other. So it was cool to me that it felt like I love Cabin Fever, which is one of his first films. And it's this group of fairly deplorable teenagers who you want to see die in horrific ways. And it's so over the top that it ends up being kind of funny. And I that appeals to me. I like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we'll get into this in spoilers, but the gore is over the top awesome. Like, I'm not a gore hound, but when it's done, at least this is how I felt about the film. When it's done with an undertone of fun, and if you're not a horror fan, you don't get it. If you are a horror fan, and I think, and I I'm not, this isn't tarring everyone with the same brush, but I think we're all have different sensitivity levels to gore and violence. But when the gore is done in a way that's complete, almost cartoonish, it's fun. This is a Friday night popcorn movie with your friends, right?
100%.
Just like Scream was.
And we won't spoil the kills, but even when you describe what they are,
Totally.
like and this is why, like I said to you, like Hostel to me kind of walks this line of comedy. I feel like all of Eli Roth's films, because of the nature of the violence, is so, it's over the top and gory, but it's also like, I just can't help but laugh because it's kind of black comedy at the same time. So I like that about Eli Roth. Although I did watch this with my brother-in-law and he was like squirming hard and like
really?
yelling out, like he's not a horror fan.
Yeah,
so that was kind of fun. Whereas I just had a big grin on my face the whole time, but he was like covering his eyes. Some of the kills, he's like, oh my gosh.
Even though, I mean, I watched it the first time about a month ago and I rewatched it yesterday when I was making some notes. And it was just same thing. I just had a smile on my face. Like, it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
The cast is really good, I think. There's some faces that you'll recognize. Like, I can't remember the actor's name from Suits.
I didn't watch Suits either.
I've seen trailers and stuff. I've never watched it, but I've seen his face in the trailers.
Yeah.
He plays the father with the mustache.
Okay.
The heavier set guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's the father.
Yeah,
the
the
yeah.
father,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I recognize him. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a lot of fun, and it is a nostalgic, especially with the Easter eggs.
100%.
Yeah.
And I do feel like he nails the social commentary as well.
I do too.
This isn't spoilers because I think it's in the premise.
Yeah.
But that opening 20 minutes with the Black Friday riot for me was just gold. Like, I have been waiting for someone to like skewer the Black Friday phenomenon, and he does it brilliantly. Like, the fact, I looked it up. So since 2006, 12 people have been killed and 117 people have been injured by mobs at Walmart trampling people to death trying to save 15% on television.
Yeah.
It's like, that is absolutely ridiculous, especially when you juxtapose it with, and I think he plays with this too, like Thanksgiving, which is supposed to be a holiday about being thankful for what you have in your life.
Yeah.
Then Black Friday the next day where people are literally killing themselves to save 10% on TVs at Walmart. So the idea, like this opening scene, which is so over the top,
Yeah,
of
totally.
mobs of people like outside the mall, which is very evocative of like Dawn of the Dead or something, with the zombies trying to get in. What is it? They're trying to get waffle makers, a free waffle maker, waffle irons. Just absolutely massacring each other and trampling each other to death. And the gore is so over the top that it makes it that much more ridiculous. But yeah, I've been really bothered by this like Black Friday phenomenon for a while. And like, if I had someone in my life who was killed because someone wanted to save 15% on a waffle iron at Walmart, like that just seems like the most senseless way a person could possibly die.
Yeah.
So I feel like that needs to be made fun of. And Eli Roth nails it. Like, I think
so.
I was like cheering because I think that's like the horror genre is the perfect place to have some social commentary on that.
Absolutely. And I think even that the very opening scene, which just right away he's referencing Halloween.
And Black Christmas too. Do you think with the breathing, the first,
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah,
which
yeah,
are both holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think actually John Carpenter no,
Black Christmas was first.
that's right.
Yeah,
I think people said that
74.
he was maybe
Yeah,
actually ripping off
yeah. Good point.
Black Christmas. Yeah.
I mean, because Halloween is, more common for most people. I think that's what people would jump to. But yeah, there's the breathing.
And they're both hot. Like you have Christmas and you have
Yeah,
Halloween, and now you have Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Each with that opening POV. Yeah.
yeah, that's very cool. Like, I think particularly in the States, where for us Thanksgiving comes before Halloween.
Yes, that's
But
true.
in the States, you've got Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas.
Yeah.
I can see myself. My son and I kind of flipped a coin, and we decided to watch Bob Clark's other Christmas classic,
Christmas Story.
Christmas Story.
A lot of people don't know that's the same director.
I know. Well, yeah, you wouldn't make the connection
No,
because they're
it's true.
so diametrically opposed.
And Porky's? Did he do?
Porky's, I
Yeah,
think.
okay.
Yeah.
3 very different films.
Like I can see myself watching, sort of in the holiday season, watching Thanksgiving and Black Christmas at the same time.
Totally. That's a good double feature.
Anyway, yeah, I just think, it's the film is just so much fun. And I definitely want to go back and try to see if I can, and I'm sure somebody on YouTube has done this already, but try to see where the parallels are.
Mhm.
But I'm just, go ahead.
Did you pick up on? I also noticed there was lots of red and blue, and characters in conflict with each other who were wearing red and blue. Like there's that first fight between the one guy's wearing all red jacket, the other guy's like who's in the mob wearing all blue jacket. So I wonder if he was also like throwing some political commentary in there, like Republicans and Democrats being at each other's throats, which I think has been
I hadn't thought of that.
hit an unhealthy level in the United States these days. So I feel like he was maybe poking fun at that because I noticed lots of conflict between red and blue, and I wonder if that was some political jabs.
I can see that for him.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool too. Maybe that's not what he was going for, but that's kind of how I saw it.
So what Easter eggs so we've already mentioned the opening one, and then what else did you see?
I didn't take note of them actually. And I watched this one maybe a week ago. So the opening scene for me was the biggest one that I noticed.
Okay.
Although when you point them out, I remember. So which ones are you thinking of?
Well, it's funny because my I don't know if my thing hasn't updated or not, but
Oh no.
I don't see my list of Easter eggs, but I'm just looking here. So
I have a subtle Easter egg, but you go first.
So Happy Birthday to Me. There's an Easter egg in there.
Not seen that one.
My Bloody Valentine.
Oh yeah.
The Guest. I didn't catch this one, but somebody mentioned it.
Oh cool.
I don't know which one that is. I know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, what was that one?
That's the parade.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right. And then Halloween and Wreck.
Oh, I didn't catch the wreck one.
I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think the one that they're referring to is the spoiler if you haven't seen Wreck. The end of Wreck where she's kind of crawling.
Oh yeah.
That there's a scene in there where something similar happens. So what did you?
Well, there's a scene which I guess I don't want to spoil, but there's a woman lying on a table and he's doing something to her feet.
Yeah.
And it's really zoomed in on the feet and she's got like a pedicure and there. I wonder if that was a bit of a nod to Quentin Tarantino.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because he's friends with Quentin Tarantino and he has a reputation for having a foot fetish. So part of me was like, is this Eli Roth like sending a little like love note to Quentin Tarantino?
It's funny you should mention that because I didn't think about it the first time I watched, but yesterday, because it's a very lingering shot.
Exactly. And her feet are very done up. And I just feel like that's not typically something you would see.
And it's almost, I don't want to sound like some kind of weirdo perv here, but it's the way it's filmed, it's almost erotic.
Yeah, because he's like putting garnishes or things in between her toes and sprinkling it with salt and putting
there's a brush
like
involved.
A brine over top. Yeah, to me, they were really playing up this foot thing.
Totally.
And I thought, because I know Eli Roth is good friends with Tarantino, I just thought maybe that was for him or like a joke. Or
because
I laughed at that part. That was great.
I definitely noticed how much time was spent in that shot, in that sequence, and I thought, but it didn't dawn on me. I did think of Quentin Tarantino. I'm not sure if I knew that they were close friends. I know that they know each other, and I've seen them interviewed before. But that's great because that's a great scene. Yeah, so I mean, those were the ones, like I said, those were the ones that I looked up online.
It would be fun to go back and watch it solely for like looking for Easter eggs.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think Roth is so steeped in horror that, and being a director, he would have a visual eye that maybe some people don't. And I don't know how subtle some of these are. Like the Halloween one was hit you over the head for sure. Speaking of, there's a great scene. Let me see if I wrote down. There's a scene, and I won't spoil it, but there's a scene where the quote in the scene is, "To go viral, you really need to hit people over the head." And
Yes.
I howled when I heard that and saw the scene because, like some other recent films, I'm thinking Bodies, 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 because actually it's one that's on my list to rewatch because my initial reaction was, and we've definitely, there's definitely some great memes,
Yeah.
particularly about
Podcasts,
podcasting
yeah.
that came out of that one. But there's the commentary is what I want to go back and watch for. Now that I know kind of how the film plays out, there's the social commentary which is obvious the first watch, but I want to go back and kind of nitpick.
Yeah, and the style of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is very much a Eli Roth style. Like it, yeah, I didn't know what to expect either going into it, but afterwards you realize, okay, this movie is actually kind of
Totally
walking that line between black comedy. So yeah, that's a good comparison.
So maybe before we go into spoilers, do you want to give your thoughts, or was there other things you wanted to talk about in the film?
Yeah, I guess like we've been just one other quote that was good. When they're on their way to the movies, and the reason they stop at Walmart or Right Mart or whatever it's called is to get a phone. So he's like, "What's the point of going to the movies if your phone is dead?" So I thought that was amazing, and it's so true of teenagers who always have to have their phones at the movie theater. Yeah, I think for something I didn't like. So obviously, I really enjoyed the film overall. There's lots of fun moments. I was not very invested though in like the character drama. Like there's the sort of storyline with her and the two boyfriends. They're kind of competing for her. Like I didn't really care about that. I was a bit in between the horror parts. I was maybe a bit bored.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't care much about the filler. So I thought all the moments that were meant to be fun were super fun. But there were definitely parts of the movie where I was a bit less interested. Like that part didn't grab me. The character drama stuff didn't grab me.
No, but I mean, I don't know. You might think differently. I mean, I don't know that. I feel like what I've seen and I know of Roth films, the fillers are exactly that. They're to get you to the next setup for the kill.
Yeah.
Because really, it's his kills that are always awesome.
For sure.
Right?
I guess I think in a movie like Scream, I am a little bit more invested in the character drama.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I just didn't. I didn't think it was as well executed. But you're right. That's not what we're here for. We're here for...
Yeah.
But if I'm to nitpick or choose something, like just something that I found myself not liking, that was the one thing.
And arguably, and I don't know if you can say this is all the director or the writing or whatever, because Eli Roth, I think, shares a co-writing credit on this one, or maybe it's all him. He's not Wes Craven as a director, in my opinion. He's not as accomplished a director. Now, he's young in his career.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But he's I mean, Wes Craven was at the height of his powers, I think, as a director, and had many films under his belt before he did Scream. So I think it's an unfair comparison with Roth being...
Oh, totally. Sorry, I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
So I think... So I definitely forgive him because I do think that I come to one of his films for those setups for the kills.
For sure. And he has such a distinct style. You kind of know what you're in for with a Eli Roth film. And I think he delivers on those things.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Now...
I also love the look of Plymouth, Massachusetts. Like, it's very idyllic. Like, I've not been there myself, but I do find that appealing. Just Thanksgiving time.
Yeah.
The streets look really nice. I wanted to be there, not with the killer part, but it looks like a nice place to visit. I would like to go there.
Yeah. It's lovely, and I think any of those. I mean, if you're a fan of Halloween, you know that it was filmed in California, not in Haddonfield, Illinois.
Really?
But they do a good job of evoking. I mean, my memory of I grew up back east, not as far east as Massachusetts, but Ontario. Quebec, the leaves change color like in many parts of North America, not so much here. But they did a good job, even in the original Halloween, of evoking that time of
Yes.
the year, and I think they do a really good job here too.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I feel similarly. I don't know that I would have. I guess because I enjoyed the kills so much, and it was just just frolicking with the over the topness of the kills. I didn't so much notice the in between, but I would agree with you. That's like, yeah, whatever, get on with it. Like,
Yeah.
get us to the next kill.
Yeah.
You've kind of got she's not evil, but you've kind of got the stepmother thing going on where she doesn't get along with her stepdaughter,
Yeah.
and the dad who's just like a little oblivious to that. And you've got the gang of friends. You've got the well-meaning but very inappropriate older guy who's hanging out with,
Yes.
so there's some tropes well worn there, I think. But yeah, I just think it was so much fun, and I didn't get the runtime, but it's not much over 90 minutes if it is.
I don't think so. It didn't feel long.
It didn't feel long at all. So yeah, I definitely, if you haven't seen it, because I think it came out late in the year.
Yeah.
It's definitely one worth adding to your holiday lists, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I can't imagine anyone not enjoying this movie on some level, unless you're really put off by gore.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, oh, I just can't handle that. But it's just a fun movie. I think no matter what kind of subsets of horror you like, I think most people can appreciate this one.
Absolutely. And
It's super accessible.
Like I say, I don't feel, I guess for me, this is kind of like a Roadrunner cartoon in terms of the gore, right? Like it's ridiculous.
For sure.
You got Wile E. Coyote getting splatted by a large rock or something. It's kind of that cartoon violence that you can kind of look at and go, I'll talk about it in the spoilers, but there's one scene in the parade where I'm just like, oh, that's crazy.
Yes.
So yeah, I just think, if you're super sensitive to violence, maybe you won't have fun with this. But I think because it's so over the top cartoonish that you can kind of let it go, and there's not an undertone of reality to it. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, it's not Terrifier 2. It's,
Yeah, 100%, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not that
It's not
grittiness.
mean-spirited.
No,
it's
not
funny.
at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. So are we good with spoilers now?
I think so, yeah. So it sounds like we're both recommending this.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
strong
recommend.
recommend.
Yeah, I would see it. Like, go out and watch it. Pause, go watch it, come back and listen to the spoilers. Okay, so this is spoilers. Okay, spoilers.
So I just had an upcoming thing spoiled for me.
Oh, let's get into the kills.
Yeah.
Because so the first victim, Gina Gershon's kill is awesome in the riot.
Oh,
With
yeah.
hit by the cart. Her hair pulled out.
That's what made it so great.
It's like, yeah, it's just, and then the first victim who was very vocal in the riot,
Yes.
the waitress.
Yeah.
That's awesome too, because he kind of plunges her head into some water and then sticks her to a freezer door, and there's her skin ripping
Ripped
off the
off.
door. And
But the best part is when she tries to get on her phone and the finger, because she's lost her fingertip.
Yeah.
They won't do the fingerprint recognition, and then because her face has been burned, it doesn't recognize her facial thing.
Yeah.
So she's trying to get on her phone to call the police. The finger thing doesn't work. The facial recognition doesn't work. I thought that was hilarious. Like good social commentary mixed in with the kill and over the top. It was really funny.
Yeah, because it is really good, because the social commentary part is like, well, if it was like a button dial or even a rotary phone, you would have been able to phone 911. But
Yeah.
because you're trying to get into your phone,
There's like blood all over the screen and she's trying to recognize her fingerprint. It was pretty over the
yeah,
top.
it was just it was just great. And I won't list every one, but the
Which one stood out to you as your favorite? I thought the trampoline one was awesome.
Yeah, I think, and it was still over the top, but I think the oven,
Ugh, yeah.
that one was kind of like, ooh, that's cringy.
That one was less fun.
It was less
more like,
fun.
oh, that's brutal.
I mean, like I alluded to it before we got into this, but the parade one where this big pole goes through the guy's head.
Right through his head, they show it all.
Yeah.
It's really nasty. Yeah.
And then I don't know, they're saying, "Wake up, Grandpa, wake up."
yeah. The kids are next to him, right? It's just
Yeah.
face.
And I wondered, I didn't see it in the list of Easter eggs, but I wonder if that's a reference to The Descent, or even
Oh.
maybe not The Descent.
The spelunking one?
Yeah, Because isn't that how it opens with her husband
Oh, maybe.
getting?
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
And then there's also Final Destination.
Yes, that's
where
possible.
There's a scene with Final Destination in a logging truck.
Yeah, true. Oh, yeah,
Um,
I can see that.
So I nobody listed that as an Easter egg.
There's
but-
also one of those things like
excuse me.
corn on the cob grabbers.
Yeah, those were awesome.
He like stabs the guy in the 2 ears with the 2 corn on the cob things. Like it's just so over the top.
And I think that's the scene that they're thinking is referencing Wreck, because she's on the floor,
yeah,
crawling towards the stairs, and then John Craven, is it John Craven?
Mhm.
So he grabs her from behind, and you see her being pulled backwards.
yes,
So I think that's kind of like the finale of Wreck.
yeah, that makes sense. Or John Carver.
Carver, sorry. I had Wes Craven and John Carver. Now, my question, well, I think this was a great addition to all the holiday slashers. How did you feel about the ending? Because to me, I was thinking that seemed like an obvious reference to Friday the 13th with her dream of the boy
Totally.
in the lake.
I had the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Or even one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets too. Like they think it's all
Yes.
over, and he reaches out and grabs.
Yeah. Isn't that the first one? The ending
Yeah.
is he pulls her mother through
Through the door.
the door.
Yeah,
window,
that's what it reminded me of.
Okay.
But you're right, Friday the 13th as well. So maybe that makes sense that he's kind of. I think that's another Easter egg.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
did you feel that they were leaving it open for a sequel?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Which I'm always leery of.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Halloween franchise, which has
Yeah.
gone on to do
Yeah.
a lot, and then you also have the sequel to Black
Sadly,
Christmas, which
yeah.
is pretty terrible. But yeah, I think he definitely wanted to leave the door open. Now, it could have been an Easter egg nod to those slasher films.
Yes.
Or maybe it's serving double duty where he wanted to pay homage to those things, but then it also is a convenient
If they
factor
choose
of
to
leaving
do
it
yeah.
open for a sequel,
Yeah.
which I think this film probably did pretty well. I didn't collect data on.
No, I didn't
how
look
much
to
it
see how it
made,
did at the
but-
box office. Like, because that, to me, that, like, you think the killer is maybe consumed by fire,
Mhm.
but then there's a suggestion, there's a hint that one of the firemen, they kind of linger on him coming out of the fire. He's got a mask on, but there's no way he could have not been burned. You don't see any burned
Yeah.
skin on the neck or anything.
But kind of like Scream, because it's all with a mask, you could have it be
Exactly.
a different person
Exactly.
or a copycat or so.
Exactly.
I definitely would not be surprised to see a sequel to this
No,
in,
me
in
neither.
2
And-
years. Yeah.
I mean, I alluded to this at the beginning, and I didn't want to give it away. But one of the things that I liked about this was casting Patrick Dempsey against type, because
Mhm.
even though he plays kind of the all-American, he's a cop and whatever. And this is a major spoiler, but we're in the spoiler section, so I like the fact that he was the killer, and they played against his type.
For sure. That worked for me as well. And I think it tricked me a bit as well, because I kind
Absolutely.
of had written him off as a possibility. But yeah, when they explain it, it made sense.
Totally.
I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. And because they do something at the beginning, the interaction with him and the girl and
Yeah.
the woman, like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but I kind of forgotten about that. So
Well-
yeah, I like that it made sense. It wasn't like, oh, that doesn't make.
Yeah, he has motivation.
He
for
has
sure.
motivation that's genuine, and also he's not who I was kind of expecting to be
Totally.
the killer. So I like that.
I mean, I liked how they did that, but I mean, the second time through, I definitely noticed, and this is not a nitpick. It is what it is, but it's kind of like in time travel movies where you just suspend your disbelief.
Mhm.
I mean, there were logical inconsistencies in the timeline. It's like, how could he have been doing that and still have been doing this? Like, it seemed
For
too
sure.
quick. So that's what made me wonder about a sequel. What did he have a partner that
Oh,
we don't
interesting.
know about? Because it seemed like the timing was too quick in some of the John Carver scene, and then he's on the scene.
Yeah.
It seemed
I guess in
too-
these types of films, I almost just automatically
Totally.
suspend disbelief. I just
Totally.
assume they're going to do things like that.
Yeah.
But you're right. It in the realm of physics doesn't really make sense.
Yeah,
how that
and
would
like I
work.
say, that's not a complaint or a criticism or a nitpick. It's just I noticed it the second time. I didn't notice it my first time. I was more invested in the story.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice that, but I'd heard it in reviews that some people.
But then
didn't like
in
that.
the second watch, it's like, okay, but if he's there, like, so the one that really stuck out to me is when the protagonist female character is in the high school waiting for her friends, and she's hiding in I don't know where this high school is, but they've got like a hair salon. Looks
You
like
didn't have a hair salon at your high school?
no. It looks like they're it's a training salon kind of thing. She's hiding in there, but literally before she went in, there was already a crime committed at the high school. So the cops are all there, and from the inside of the building, you can see Patrick Dempsey talking to other cops outside.
Oh, that's true.
So how does he extricate himself, get inside the building, do all the things that he's doing? And so that was like, oh, I don't know. You shouldn't have. I would have cut that scene so it made it less sure that he was outside the building.
Now, because Eli Roth is kind of like paying homage to all these different horror
Yeah,
films and
yeah.
maybe making fun of horror cliches, do you think?
Possibly.
Because that happens, I think, in a lot of horror movies
Absolutely.
of this ilk, that they do those sorts of things. So I wonder if that was an intentional,
That's a good point.
almost like oh, hey, like, I wonder if that was intentional, I guess. What I'm saying.
Yeah, because he's a very smart director. So that's a good point. I hadn't considered that it would be an intentional. I just assumed it would be an unintentional kind of.
Because he
faux
is kind
pas.
of poking fun at different
Absolutely
horror tropes.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's what he's doing
That's
there.
a good point.
Because it's so obvious that,
Yeah, and he's bright enough. I would think he would catch that in editing.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's just a like a red herring that he's throwing in there.
I wonder, because I think a lot of these like whodunit slasher films are guilty of that sort of thing.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
so-
sure. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the what I wanted to get into in the spoilers was just the kills, because I thought
Yeah.
there was so much fun.
And it just really oozes like Thanksgiving theme.
It really does, yeah.
There's lots of turkeys, lots of orange. There's like the Mayflower, the Plymouth, the Thanksgiving looking guy. Like it feels a lot like a Thanksgiving movie. It's not just a movie that takes place during Thanksgiving, but they throw the theme in there, so
Yeah,
it feels
totally.
like a holiday movie, which is cool.
Um,
Yeah, I think it was great. How would you? You're not necessarily an Eli Roth fan, though, are you?
well, I think I mentioned this maybe in our top 10, or maybe it was in another episode. I mean, I do see with different eyes now.
You should go back and watch Hostel again and see.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think maybe. So I was starting to say I do see with different eyes that I think the comment that I made was he's criticized for being pretty bro-y, and kind of having that bro culture.
Which I actually noticed in this film as well, because they're
Totally.
like all the guys are athletes, all the girls are cheerleaders. Like he kind of felt. Now that's maybe also of the time.
That's a trope
because
for
that's
sure.
kind of this is like a '90s kind of throwback. So
yeah.
it's hard to say whether that's his stance on things or whether that's the time he's trying to.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I haven't done enough research to definitely fall on one side or the other, but I know a lot of the criticisms that have been leveled at him is that his films, particularly Hostel, but Cabin Fever, I think falls into this, where the female characters, there's certainly an edge of misogyny, and they don't come across as very well written or well rounded compared sometimes to the male characters. And so I think with everything that's happened, particularly in the last few years with Me Too and so on, I kind of see maybe with different eyes when I look back. Having said that, though, I also think you can't judge a film or a filmmaker of its time with eyes of now.
I agree with that.
Right? So I do have, and I know this isn't going to maybe go over well with some. I know my wife and I disagree on this fairly intensely. Somebody like Roman Polanski, I feel like you can separate the person from the art. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I just feel like you can judge a person's art and the output without mixing in who a crime they may have committed or an attitude that they have.
I agree, because if you compare it to sports, you could have objectively the fastest runner in the world. He's got the fastest time. He is clearly the best runner. And maybe he did horrible things in his personal life, but you can't take away the fact that, well, objectively, he was the
Right,
fastest
his
runner.
achievement,
So
yeah.
why would art be different? Like, if they created something that is amazing on an artistic level, despite what they did in their personal life. I feel like you can still appreciate why it's good art, just like you could appreciate why someone was a good athlete.
Yeah, I tend to agree there. And I mean, I'm reading.
And you can still say this is a horrible person, but you could say this film they made is really good.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I come down on it too. And I also feel like, and again, I'm not excusing Polanski of the crimes he's been accused of. I think he was found guilty in absentia of rape, which is why he's persona non grata in the States. But I'm reading a book right now about filmmaking in the 60s and 70s, particularly called Easy Riders and Raging Bulls. And if you listen to the stories of other big names, like, for example, Jack Nicholson, who I know was very close with Roman Polanski, there's a lot of stuff going on in that time period that by today's standards are cringy.
Mm-hmm.
And you just think, okay, that's unacceptable. Mm. But at the time, it was definitely swept under the rug. I'm not going to suggest it was acceptable by everybody, but it was swept under the rug and people thought, okay, well, that's his personal life. I mean, another great example is JFK. We know that he was protected by the media.
Yeah.
And there was a wall put up about, okay, this is him as a leader and this is him as a person. Now, I'm going to be contradictory here because I think if you're a leader of a very powerful country with a lot of power globally, who you are as a person kind of comes into your ability to lead.
Yeah, I would argue that heading into 2024, that's an accurate statement.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think it's different when you're producing a product as opposed to
yes.
And I don't mean to diminish art as a product, but let's just call it that. I think who you are as a person definitely comes through in your art, your attitudes towards women or towards politics or whatever. But arguably, as you've said, you can create a great piece of art and still be a piece of shit as a person.
Yeah, if tomorrow Steven Spielberg, we found out that he was a pedophile, well, would you say Schindler's List is not a good film or Saving Private Ryan? Like, objectively, Schindler's List is an amazing film.
Right.
Regardless of what he's like as a person. You can still not support it. Like, if you find someone, if you don't want to support them, you cannot pay for it or you cannot.
Yeah.
I get not supporting something that's benefiting that person for that reason.
Yeah.
But you could still, even though you're not supporting it, you could still say, as a work of art, it's still, there's talent there, there's skill there.
100%.
But anyways.
Anyway, that got a little serious. Sorry about episode 1.
We just got canceled. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you guys later.
Episode 1, and we're already getting into the weeds. Okay, so let's maybe tie a bow on this.
Yes.
And it's 2 thumbs up. Definitely recommend. Go watch it. This was a really fun film. Coming back to our initial concept of fun, and hopefully you can get
the irony of ending our very fun film review with super serious
totally.
subject matter. But that's okay. People probably enjoy that. This is a strong recommend, I think. It's nice to see Eli Roth making films again. Like, I would be excited to see him make more, as I love this style. I like that sense of fun and that kind of blend of comedy. Totally. And it's just entertaining, but it also like scratches that horror itch. I like what he does stylistically.
Yeah. So this is probably streaming, I would guess, in the next couple months. But by whatever means you find yourself watching this film, I hope you get a chance to watch it soon. Welcome back to season 5, and I hope you stick with us for the rest of the season.
So our next episode will not be a typical film review.
Different.
Our next episode will actually be our 50th episode. And as Leatherface was saying earlier today, apparently, statistically, most podcasts don't make it past episode 7. So we're a little bit proud that we've made it to episode 50. Stay tuned for something a little bit unorthodox, something a little different. Do we want to say what it is?
No.
Keep it a surprise. Okay. It will not be a typical film review. It will be something a little bit different to celebrate our 50th episode. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, it very much helps if you can like and subscribe. It's the obligatory thing we have to say now because that's how we get...
Got to
take advantage of the algorithm.
Algorithm gods, yeah, exactly.
Damn algorithms. But thank you for watching and listening, and
we'll see you in the aisles.